quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. Well, there is so much to report that we're going to have to combine issues into one video. The Drumpf white trash house is riddled with problems, self-destructive, self-inflicted problems caused by the initial fault of having treasonously colluded with our enemy Putin and Russia to undermine our democracy. And as a result, every panel, every fake wood, plywood panel that Drumpf puts up falls down onto the idiot's head. Drumpf is rightly terrified of FBI Special Counsel Bob Mueller, since Drumpf and its clan colluded with our enemy Putin and Russia. There is no escape from this investigation. It will go through to the inevitable conclusion. The reason why Drumpf wouldn't show its taxes is evident. It is all falling into place, and all of it against Drumpf. If Bob Mueller is fired, which he in all likelihood will not be, he'll be a free citizen who can then become America's greatest whistleblower, as will every single one of his investigators, his fellow investigators, and prosecutors. He will then be able to mention every single thing that he's uncovered thus far. So can his investigators and prosecutors, because their interest, unlike Drumpf's, is in protecting the United States of America from all enemies, foreign, or in this case, domestic. Issue number 2, bashing fellow U.S. traitor Jeff Sessions, who was handpicked by traitor Drumpf. This only further emphasizes that not only does Drumpf not know how to select anyone as a staff member, it also shows incredibly clearly that Drumpf does not know how to pick the best people. He doesn't even know what the best means. Drumpf considers itself the best. So what you can gather from that is Drumpf doesn't understand what words mean. Actually, what Drumpf means is Drumpf is the worst and picks like-minded idiots. Drumpf is an idiot, and he picks fellow idiots. Drumpf tweeting about being able to pardon anyone, including itself, is purely a statement of guilt. And acceptance of a pardon is an admission of guilt. And a pardon is only federally applied. A presidential pardon is a federal pardon, releasing one from legal charges federally. However, it does not offer any protection from states that file criminal charges. So let's say Drumpf pardons itself and its clan for having colluded with our enemy Russia and Putin to undermine our democracy. That will be an admission of guilt. Then states can just pile on and file independent criminal charges against Drumpf and all of its clansters for all of the very same crimes that it pardoned itself from. So there is no escape, even with a federal pardon, from states that wish to seek U.S. justice. There is no escape. If Drumpf is found guilty, that is the end of the line, pardon or not. So although Drumpf is not actually a real president, like twice duly elected President Barack Obama, the man who got Osama bin Laden, Drumpf could try and pardon itself, which would backfire miserably, and even if it was successful, which it wouldn't be, then states could just climb on and start filing criminal charges left and right. Drumpf obviously doesn't think before it tweets. So it tweeted that it could pardon itself and all other kinds of people without even knowing that a pardon is an admission of guilt. So any one of those states that pursued criminal charges for a matter that Drumpf had pardoned itself or its clan from would then be open and shut cases because there would already be an admission of guilt on the record. So that's out. Drumpf will most likely serve prison time, or worse. So will its clan. It's also coming out that Drumpf dictated the letter that Drumpf Jr. used to try and protect itself from the meeting where it colluded with Russians to undermine our US election by releasing fake negative stories about Senator Hillary Clinton, where he said in his own email that sounds great. He said, "I love it," and that's a quote verbatim. So he wasn't saying I love anything about this adoption issue or anything else. He was saying I love it concerning dirt, fake stories, fake negative stories about Hillary Clinton. So he's already on the record doing that. Now it turns out that unelected US traitor Drumpf dictated that idiotic letter. So now this is all coming together in the worst possible way for Drumpf. Drumpf's own legal counsel referred to the statute of limitations on criminal matters regarding the ongoing criminal and counterintelligence investigations into unelected US traitor Drumpf. That is another symptom of guilt. That just raises suspicion. It does not do anything positive to alleviate or allay any of the guilt or suspicion associated with Drumpf. None of it. It adds more fuel to the fire. Not to mention there are different guidelines, different types of crimes and different statutes of limitations for each one. So all Drumpf is doing is digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And Drumpf is at the bottom of it, and America is looking down at him. You can just look at his approval numbers, which are abysmal, and his disapproval numbers, which have skyrocketed and maintained that high, lofty position for months now. And it will get worse. It will absolutely get worse. Once Special Counsel Mueller's investigation concludes and the American people are delivered the results of that fastidious and meticulous ongoing criminal and counterintelligence investigation into Drumpf and its clan. Next up, Drumpf said, "I will protect the LGBTQ community.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful ideology."
Then tweets about its actual anti-gay motives and feelings improperly. Alleging falsely that after being counseled by generals in our military, it decided on its own to ban transgender soldiers like Christine Beck, a 20-year veteran of the United States Navy SEAL Team 6, the team responsible for killing our number one enemy, Osama bin Laden. Incidentally, Christine Beck has gone ahead and suggested that Drumpf tell her right to her face what he thinks. Of course, that flopped, and the military immediately said that they wouldn't be honoring any of unelected US traitor Drumpf's tweets because they weren't policy, and that they were going to accord the same high level of respect for those transgender US military soldiers that they had been giving, and that they would continue to give that same level and standard of respect, which is perfectly reasonable considering they're giving their lives for this country. No one in Drumpf's entire family has ever served in our military. Not a single one of them. Drumpf took deferments, saying that my heel hurts. His heel hurt, so he couldn't go to Vietnam because his heel hurt. It's fascinating. Has a lot to say about who can join the military when it itself wouldn't, out of cowardice and fear, obviously. Next up, law enforcement. Idiot Drumpf has gone out and encouraged police to commit illegal acts of police brutality. The ones that have been on the rise over the past, that have inflamed United States citizens and encouraged them to revolt and distrust the police in their neighborhoods, in their cities, and in their states. This should not be tolerated. It should be seen as inciting violence in a different way than inciting it publicly, inciting it in a different way, which is way, way, way more egregious and destructive. It's always destructive, but when you're taking the body of law enforcement that's responsible for adhering to the law and encouraging them to ignore the law and serve their own violent instincts, which are what drumpfs are, then you're creating a situation where nobody will ever trust the police again. And it's anti-American drivel. So any police brutality that arises from Drumpf's anti-American drivel should be attributed to unelected Drumpf, and all liability, all legal responsibility and liability that results from Drumpf's incredibly idiotic drivel, legal fees, settlements with victims of police brutality, lawsuits against police departments, lawsuits against their officers, all of that should be directed to, and the liability and legal responsibility of unelected Drumpf. Every little bit of it. And all of the legal fees, all of the settlements should be paid for by Big Mouth Drumpf. Next, and certainly just as disgusting as the previous issues, this is the first time in history where the president of the Boy Scouts of America had to apologize for someone's speech at their jamboree because it was loaded with and laced with false, untrue, self-aggrandizing political gibberish offered up by unelected US traitor Drumpf. Every one of those Boy Scouts is going to see down the road when Drumpf is arrested, hauled off, and incarcerated for treason against this great country. Those scouts will share a mutual disappointment for having heard the dishonorable words of a bloated, lying, hideous, unelected US traitor and gasbag who came into their jamboree, lied, and made a complete and utter idiot out of itself. Many of them and their families will be overjoyed when Drumpf is placed behind bars finally. This world will be a much better and safer place once unelected US traitor Drumpf is locked up behind bars, along with its clan. And finally, goodbye, scared moocher, you tiny, sycophantic monkey who gesticulated like your awful, despicable, idle, unelected US traitor Drumpf. In 10 days' time, you lost your integrity, you lost your wife, and you lost your most recent job. We couldn't be more thrilled with those results. That's exactly what should happen to anyone and everyone who hitches their trailer to this disgusting, bloated piece of garbage, Drumpf. Lock him up. Lock 'em all up.